Okay, that's a little bit of the classical music for those of us who are inclined to like really get into the groove of it. Little bassoon solo. I mean, yeah, played that instrument as a younger man and still enjoy it. So, Bosto, everybody, how are y'all doing? So good to see you. Just speaking favor over all of us. And hey, got my Sky Pilot here, a little hug. Some people are having a pretty rough day, so we just send out the love vibe. Yeah, love classical music. I'll tell you, it's, I like most of all kinds of music, and classical music sometimes just gets me going, baby. But anyway, hey, Susie Q, what's up? Good to see you, hon. Thank you, all the moderators. Big Al heading to Las Vegas, New Mexico. Be careful up there, butter. No, it's slick. Hey, Coyote Prophet, good to see you. Favor be unto you, my friend. And we just speak Bosto to everyone. Shannon, good to see you. Pamela, James, hello. Twilight Traveler, and hello to Saul Vicus from Tehran. Good to hear from you. Thank you. Hey, Robert V, what's up? Yeah, let me just put this on pause because I really, really like that. The young lady playing that bassoon is phenomenal. That's all I can say. Freaking phenomenal. That's it. Freaking phenomenal, don't you know? Um, so anyway, what else is happening? Uh, just getting over here to all these other windows. Yeah, I got the bus. It's all cool. Yeah. Got my hot beverage. I hope you do wherever you are. Could be a cold one if you're listening in other places. In Australia, what the hell is going on down there? Whoa. Y'all are like I saw the mices, and the spiders, and the and I mean the mice are everywhere. I know it's apparently, I guess, what is it, more on the east coast of the continent there, but wow, people saying you can't go to sleep because the critters are crawling over you. Now that, my friends, is pretty intense. That's all I got to say. Whoa. So we just send y'all some good vibes down there. That's all I got to say. So, and welcome everyone else in the chat room. So good to see you. The world is becoming unbelievable. Ain't that the truth, Pamela Jean? Yep, it's a fact. So tomorrow I got Jennifer Roberts returning. I asked her back on because she has a story about her grandfather it's going to move you. And then tomorrow night, Steiger perspective. I do not consent. And next week got Marsha. It's going to come on with Trina and I. It's going to be fun. So look forward to that. And then Wednesday, the 31st, have April and Jay from Spiritual Raw. So looking forward to that. So what's up, everybody? How is it going? You know, time. Mm, time. It's the curse. It really is. So no one asked me what my definition of evil was. And I think time would be a strong candidate. Time. Never enough time or too much time. People who become bored. And once you become bored and your mind becomes kind of in a state of consciousness where if you're bored, you're highly susceptible to suggestion. I'll put it that way. An active mind, very difficult to sidetrack them because typically they're active. That's where the video games come in. You know, what people don't realize is that there's a hidden code on all video games. And even though the programmers would say, well, that's not true, but the ghost in the machine would say it is true. And I happen to know about the ghost in the machine. It's real, strange phenomenon, how software begins to rewrite itself. Although we would not say that that's consciousness, sentience of thought. But then again, how does a computer start writing code? I don't know. Hey, Jenny, what's up? Good to see ya. So, Charlie Mad, good to see you. An idle mind is a naughty mind. Well, I don't know. I guess, yeah, Charlie, I could see that. Although, if you're in the act of coitus, that does take a lot of concentration, does it not? In fact, I could put it out there and suggest, just for conversation's sake, that actually coitus is in fact the epitome of focus and concentration. Anyone care to comment in the chat room? Let's just see how lively this conversation. You see, this is what happens when you listen to classical music. It begins to expand your whole thing. Computer in a non-organic thinker. Well, there you go. So, but think about the aspect of the coitus. It does require deep concentration. And now if we can just carry that over, imagine that. Okay. Let's talk about time. Got something that's really going to be fun here. Janice says, let's see. Only if you're attempting to please your partner. I don't know, Shannon. Wouldn't that work if it was, yourself? I mean, same thing, right? I mean, it does take concentration no matter what side you're on, right? Okay. Deborah Trek says, I'm late, and the first thing I hear of is in the act of coitus. Well, of course. That's what makes being human, I think, being human. Yeah, there's the animal kingdom and the plant kingdom. They got their own thing. But I mean, us over here in the human kingdom, I mean, you got to admit, you can see how in many of the different cultures and philosophies and society norms, that how back in the day, only the gods could enjoy the pleasures of coitus. Yeah, I can see that. Yeah. I wonder if spirits really envy that. Oh, we just completely went off the tracks here. Hell, we just went ahead and built our own on ramp and off ramp here. But anyway, so getting back to the topic, I came across this little jewel, and I just thought I would share it with you because we're living in a time where the planet is literally speeding up, so the days are getting shorter. And it's, folks, I mean, my thought is this, and I am by no means a trained professional, but I do have a brain, and I can easily deduct reasoning that if you've got a mass the size of the planet Earth, and even if it's getting millisecond faster, mass and inertia will begin to build in that particular direction, right? True? Yeah, I mean, that's physics. So if inertia and mass is building to where it's advancing faster and faster. So this is by E.M. Nole and H.L. Jang. Their paper, and it's quite interesting, isn't it? It's only very quick read. Time collapse and the universal ascension, the abbreviated past and future events on the collapsing timelines of third dimensional Earth. So, here we are in 2021. I mean, yeah, you think about it, we're nearly a quarter the way through this century. Now, their hypothesis, and I guess that's the only thing I could say, is late 2010s to the early 2000s. All our wars in the Middle East erupts based on turmoil that began there in 2015. I don't know. Um, all our war further exacerbates the dire U.S. and Western economic turmoil. Well, we're in economic turmoil right now. There's no doubt about it. But is used politically to distract the public. They're saying Russia withdraws from major alliances to protect itself and its sphere and remains isolated and intact, only secretly involved in global conflict. I don't know. Putin and Jing seem to be definitely becoming best buds, BFFs. So what did they say through 2017 to 2025? World War III, though not designated as such until early 2020. Well, they missed that one because now I will say this, we have and are in World War III. It's just not the way that past wars have been fought. The battlefield on this war is the digital front, and we're getting our asses kicked. Worldwide conflicts, global weather patterns shift dramatically with droughts, flooding, natural disasters. Well, that's what happens when you get near where we are, caused by interplanetary and space time waves. I think he's saying time wave shifts. Cataclysmic, unknown electrical lightning charges the mantle from the Earth as the planet attempts to rebalance the electromagnetic grid. Although their English is a little rough, I get the idea, and yeah, there's some science behind that. So let's see, the early 2020s, the great earthquake of north central Japan unleashes vast tectonic movement throughout the Pacific. Parts of Japan are submerged, coastlines of Hawaii, California. Well, that hasn't happened yet. Mid to early 2020s, New Madrid fault line is triggered by combined global tectonic activity, an unnatural manipulation causing major earthquakes that further trigger new massive activity in Yellowstone caldera. Well, then what we found out about the Yellowstone, folks, it ain't going to happen. The dynamics underneath have changed. It's not to say that it couldn't show up somewhere else, but as far as what we know as the Yellowstone caldera, I don't think that that's going to happen. But hey, I don't know. North America cataclysms ensue, including the short-term reversal of the Mississippi River. That they're just kind of repeating what happened back in the mid 1800s, and substantial flooding of portions of Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Texas. It doesn't take much to already flood those areas. They're already flooded. Let's see. Police state tactics and mass martial law implemented throughout the U.S. One could give pause on that one, eh? Let's see, the mid 2020s, use of nuclear weapons in the Middle East and Northwestern Africa. Annihilation of European cities as well. It's always bad news. I mean, can't we turn this around and say, well, instead of the annihilation, what we found is that the world got to its senses and said, to hell with the nuclear weapons, to hell with these borders, to hell with these governments. We're going to go out, we're going to party, but you know what? We're going to turn this thing around and we're going to make favor. We're going to be of service to others. We're going to be like groovy baby, and we're going to do away with all this nonsense. But no, you don't get a very large audience if you talk that. Well, hell, Steiger, all you're talking about is peace and love and forgiveness. What's the fun of that? No disaster. All right, so the 225s to the end of the disintegration and continuing collapse of the U.S. federal authority through loss of war. Right? I mean, good news keeps on coming. Political and economic collapse, American state alliances in defense of U.S. federal government, Regions form state militias, self-governance, and their own currencies to ensure survival. So let me just make a comment, and if you want the rest of, because it doesn't get any better. I mean, you're talking about massive planetary cataclysm. So here's a question I have for survivalists. So let's just say that the cataclysm hits, right? So can I ask just a common sense question? Why would you want to survive that? I mean, if you really do believe in ascension, that there is a life after this one, that your consciousness continues, that the personification of what your spirit energy is continues, I don't find a post-cataclysmic world exactly fun. I don't think that there comes a point in time when I think this reasoning, if that's going to happen, my wife and I have decided if we're around and that happens, we're grabbing a chair in the front row and away we go. It's just like Mr. McGorn, The Wonderful and Pouring. He knew, it's just a transition. Anyway, it's just a question. I just, because I'm like, I just don't see the benefit of, riding it out, so to speak. And let's say you actually do survive. Let's say it's just that cataclysmic. I mean, I don't know. I guess it would be the new frontier. All right. I got a great book. No way we're going to get all through it, but this one is fun and it's going to lift you up because I like the way the author, the narrative of how he writes, and the story is compelling. So toast to here, cheers, whatever your libation is. I says what? You are kidding, right? Kidding, I don't know what that is. The best apocalypse ever. I'm saying we can turn this thing around. I mean, that's my whole problem with prophecy. If prophecy is legit, then we're living in a holographic universe. We're living in a predetermined, within parameters, script. Otherwise, prophecy is bullshit. Oh, well, I said it. It's out there. Yeah. I don't think the future is, if the future is that predetermined, then what does it matter? I don't like my destiny being determined by something I cannot see or something that cannot be answering to me. There, let's see. Now someone's quoting Revelation. Yeah, that's what they say, but yeah, it wouldn't be bad surviving if the cataclysm. My bicycles, guys, too. Well, I love that. I love that. I just don't know. Susie Q, yes, all prophecy is relative. Isn't it true, though? It really is. It's a famous thing in, Terminator. The future isn't set. And yet, so we talk about the future. You're going to love this book. It's called The Time Loop Chronicles, and it's really it's a fun read. It really is. So we start the story, and it says the adventure begins with the protagonist walking down a path early one morning, and he discovers a strange anomaly. It is a cave inside a red rock mesa in southern Utah. He stumbles upon a door that leads into the past, to another world, maybe even another dimension. Yet, was any of it real, or was it a dream? The central character meets an ancient courier, bringing with them information that could rattle the consciousness of all humanity. Wouldn't it be grand if we could be awakened and restored with our memories. Our species is the only species on this planet that is cursed with amnesia. All the other species, their heritage is passed on, their experience. Anyway, the protagonist carefully does as he was instructed, only to find out the world is not what anyone would have believed. Now, struggling with his own false paradigm, he goes on a mission to uncover the mysteries of reality, only to get lost in the illusion of time. Yeah, it's like time is like a hot bath. You immerse yourself into it, and I mean, boom, your energy just gets into it. And as the water begins to cool, it returns. Anyway, the journey is all but convoluted from the moment it begins to its amazing end. Imagine a world that is stuck in a time loop due to an inherent error of the Earth's rotation. And after an exact set of years, the entire world reverts to a specific date in history and starts all over again, proving nothing is new under the sun, thus revealing even deeper insight that this is a never-ending story that everyone has experienced repeatedly, even though few ever awaken to this beguiling repetition. Marsha's going to be talking, we're going to be talking about the whole thing of the prison planet. And she's doing a fine thing, and I won't speak, but isn't it odd, Marsha, how the synchronicity in this whole group, this whole soul tribe, we're so freaking connected because maybe we've done this before. Maybe not once, maybe not twice, maybe 100 million times. That one may even call it hell, a seemingly eternal existence in the dream world of the mind. The day the earth fell backwards. Imagine figuring out the key to crack the code to this amazing journey that will free you from its tight grip. This story is going to take you on a very curvy path, leading you step by step into ideas, theories, worlds, counter worlds that will seem wholly false. And yet, deep down within the depth of your mind, no matter how crazy and off the wall it all seems on the surface, there will be still a ring of truth to it. Your adventure begins now. And you can see it is a book we're only going to get into a little bit. We may continue on it in future shows. The Day the Earth Fell Backwards. Chapter 1, My Encounter. That which has been is that which will be. Then that which has been done is that which will be done. So there is nothing new under the sun. Is there anything of which one might say, see this? It is new. Already it has existed for ages, which were before us. The book of Ecclesiastes. I did a word study on Ecclesiastes. Yes, that's a strange book. It's maybe evidence of time travel. Anyway, my story begins. The hike, mystery of the ruins. It is June 12th, 1984. We are having a normal warm beginning to our summer. What I am writing in this notepad is going to seem unbelievable. If these events did not happen to me, I would deem it lunacy of the mind. I can't even begin to comprehend how all of this could take place. But what I'm about to reveal will change every paradigm that you have ever believed in. I realize that most people will not give this a second thought, and that it will seem far-fetched and will become impossible to ever conceive of. Yet, what I'm about to disclose was revealed to me on a hike in the Red Rock Mesas of southern Utah. All I ask of you is to read my story and try to comprehend what it was that I was revealed, realizing that something of this magnitude is too massive to be an invention of the mind, or is it?
According to what I discovered, if we do not take heed to this warning, then we are all about to see unexplainable, massive events occur that will send humanity into another time and place. I'm not talking about terrible cataclysmic events per se, although these will indeed occur. I'm talking about a shift in our entire consciousness, which will further the amnesia and everyone whom are going to be transported to the other side of time. My incredible journey begins, and yet, as you will discover, it is not the beginning. And in fact, this journey may have played out for everyone cyclically. The trail was very hot today. Feels like 100 degrees in the sun, but that can be normal this time of year. And the wind has slowed to a breath. I had just wandered into the lost on Anasazi ancient burial grounds. Some of the artifacts there, I am told, are 900 years old. It is amazing how some of their clay mixed fortresses and cave walls are still apparent after all this time. However, the mystery of these people has long been forgotten. No more than an hour away is a small, thriving modern day town where I live, and yet these ancient elements buried beneath our feet seem to leap to the surface and scream out their stories in the hope that someone will remember their flight and fight of endurance. History seems so different up front and personal. All the lore and myth begins to wear away as we peer into the past, gaining a new perspective of what seems somewhat unmistakable. And as it touches the depth of our own memories, it reveals the possibility that we all might have walked this same path and endured its adversity. I decided to sit down and take a swig of water out of my canteen, which is now three-quarters empty. I can't take too many chances out here. I know the terrain can be confusing, and even to the avid, experienced trekker, one could get lost and vanish in time. I had hiked about 10 minutes from the last dig, which was somewhat unknown. Most of us do not like speaking of where we discover these ancient relics. We simply do not want the masses of tourism to distort or destroy these ancient marvels. We often keep our discoveries to ourselves, making sure few tread upon those lost ruins. At this point, I decided about turning around and heading back before it gets too late. Once the sun goes down, chances of ever getting out of here are slim to none and would force one to bed down for the evening under the stars, along with the critters and creepy crawlers. I had noticed a small stream a little way up. I could hear the flowing water. I meandered my way slowly over the rushing bounty. I could sense the coolness of the stream when I decided to reconcile this heat by pouring some of the exquisite H2O over my head. As I walked near the water, I took a casual glance looking over to the southwest. Peering through the trees, I realized the sun was noticeably getting lower in the sky. I could see a small red rock mesa protruding from the ground like a sore thumb, blended into the surrounding trees. Its height was about 30 feet tall with a flag ridge on top. With a flat ridge. And near the northeast side, I noticed what appeared to be a strange curvature on the side of the wall that was somewhat hidden by trees and branches. It appeared to be a door or an entranceway of some type. I was deeply intrigued by the appearance of this rock face, as it seemed quite odd to me. It was as if the rock had patterns designed into the surface, and it did not look natural. That alone had me thinking, who could possibly have designed this pattern out here? It was a small rounded shaped pattern about 4 feet high, made of what appeared to be laser cut rock. and it was no more than 3 feet wide, appearing as an entryway. It was heavily crafted, meaning the entrance looked as if it had some sort of artistry with designs and etchings engraved into the curvature of the stone surrounding. It appeared alien-like. This was obviously not the work of some caveman. This appeared as a technologically advanced imprinted rock sculpture, but gave off the appearance of being very old. And those of you who are watching, there it is. In fact, I can blow this up a little bit, and very interesting markings. There's the serpent. I see that. Okay.
We continue. It didn't make any sense why someone would be out here fastening a doorway into the walls of this mesa. It was an obvious enigma. And as you see above, I tried to copy the strange writing onto my notepad. I stared at the writing to try to ascertain some meaning, but no matter how long I tried, none of it made sense. Some of the symbols looked familiar, most of them did not. I will need to ask my professor about this as he teaches about these symbols. It is obvious that there is a message here, but I do not have the gift to crack this code. I have never seen these designs before. They appear more like pictures rather than writing, almost in the sense of being an ancient Egyptian hieroglyph, but it's not quite accurate. These seem Indian in nature, seem to be Aztec, Mesoamerican, my impression. After I splashed some water on my face from the stream, it was time to investigate the anomaly of this rock face, because it was too inviting to let it simply pass by. I had to find out for myself why there was such an entranceway into this mesa, and who could have built it, and for what reason. I attempted to climb over the fallen tree that was in the path to this door, and I took a few acceptable scrapes and cuts along the way. There was no trail out here. This was off the beaten path, as one might say. There was no signs of invitation, and it seemed so out of context to see a doorway in a mesa hidden behind the brush and trees. I want to go to southwest Utah, folks. Like to find this myself, huh? This strange wall cave entrance that most likely no one would have seen unless they were in this exact area did not have any rhyme or reason for its existence. Yet the doorway was technologically modern. And as I got closer, I realized to my stunned heart, which was now taking a few extra beats, that there was indeed a door. A small, rounded, thick rock door, as if elves built it, and it was partially opened as it appeared to swing by some engraved latch that allowed for easy movement. It's true, I am an adventurer, but I do not like danger. Those things that I do not understand, I do not usually like blindly walking through, wherewith it might not have been my best interest at heart. There was something about this door that really kept my attention, and it was partially opened. I could see the faint glimmer of what I thought was light flickering from inside. I did not know what to do. I was very cautious about getting too close, or for that matter, entering. I just sat there on the tree limb that I had just climbed over after cutting away some of the twigs that were spiked, and asked myself, what could this be? Is this the workings of some artistic drifter? Is this some explorer's hangout? Is this some government operation? But out here, I was very nervous and was deeply affected by this strange, out of the context anomaly. So much so that I decided to leave and come back another day. I figured no one except the actual builder of this door would even know about it. And being that the path to this door was untouched and was so cluttered by trees and brush, I really doubt anyone has ever been here for very long. It should remain a secret until I return, hopefully, wielding a ton more confidence in the process. But what about the flickering light on the inside? I realized that there was some strange inconsistencies here, and there was an enigma about this doorway. However, I was not about to search any further today. As I turned around to walk back home, I was spooked out of my mind when I heard this voice calling out to me saying, "Friend, don't leave." I had a thought thousands per second racing through my mind. I could not fathom who would be out here. Is this another hiker finding my secret discovery? Could this be some tramp who lives out here and is trying to hustle me for something? There was no doubt in my mind that I had no desire to turn around. However, the voice was deep, and it rang with the odd dialect and a tone that seemed strangely familiar. Throwing all caution to the wind, I turned around, and standing there, as if I was somehow teleported back into the past, was, oh my God. My hands were trembling. I could barely write, as the overwhelmingly memory of my experiences are still strong in my mind. I am hoping others will be able to read my shaky handwriting. I always carry a decent-sized notepad with me everywhere I go, mostly to verify directions when I hike using markers, where a certain tree is, or a valley or a mesa. All of it is to make sure I do not get lost. I am having to explain what I was revealed in the best way that I would hope others could understand. The things that were revealed were beyond normal intellectual protocol. And I know most people would have a difficult time in believing any of this. The question I must ask myself is, why would I even believe it? I guess the answer is because I saw it with my own two eyes. I was there. What is so funny in life, so often no one is a believer unless they witness things themselves. And yet only the few ever witness that which is out of the ordinary, leaving the mystery of life hidden under the sands of doubt. I have been given the opportunity to write all of what I personally experienced. I'm not sure I can explain everything cohesively because much of what was beyond my normal brain power. I was told that I would have to remain there for some time, and being gone for an extended period like this would alert my wife and friends that I might have fallen into some danger. However, what was first revealed was so mind-blowing that I had to remain, even at the anxiety of those who care about me. I just prayed that when I had the chance to explain all this, they would understand why I'd given them such a fright. As I turned around, looking directly at me, was what appeared to be an Indian chief, with all the regality and trimming, with the full headdress. He was my height, about 5'11", and his face was thin and worn. Obviously, he was an elderly, and the youth of his past gave into age. Yet he was vaguely familiar. His skin was as if he had been standing in the sun for many years. It was very leathery, and his eyes were deeply sunken into his sockets. His nose was small and pudgy. His lips were thin and very pale, to that of his sunburned, dried red skin. Yet he held himself with a certain distinguished demeanor. Yet I could not fight the fact that he was familiar.
Although I could not place him, like a long-lost memory of another time and place, he stood there in complete silence as I gazed over his body and behavior. There was this soulful compassion coming from his dark eyes, like he was looking at me as a trapped animal, and there was little I could do to help him. He allowed me to scan his facade and appearance, and he waited patiently for me to respond. Of course, not being educated in the ways of Indian nor their culture, I simply blurted out what was in my thoughts, saying, "Who the hell? Well, who the hell are you?" I then backtracked over my redactive response and tried it again. I meant to say, "Who are you? And where did you come from?" Obviously, not scoring many points for cultural diplomacy, he seemed ever willing to make my acquaintance, even though my outburst left a lot to be desired. He replied with a slight smile on his face. "My name is Chief Anime Cybus. I come from the Anasazi, a name meaning alien ancestors and basket weavers. We walked this earth and these lands for a very long time. I have not come to harm you. I have come to admonish you." Instinctively, I was pondering all of this and wondering, how is it that he would even know me? Why would I need his help? Who is he that he thinks he needs to admonish me? I responded in like, "How do you know me that you would assume I needed help? I am just a hiker out here investigating ancient ruins." The regale-clad man replied, "Is it not of great importance as to how or why that I know you? What is important is that you of this time period take what I will teach you and shout it out to the four winds. Humanity needs to know." "This time period? What do you mean?" "The time you are living in is about to change," he said. I was not sure if he was explaining this properly or not, or maybe I couldn't understand his reference to time. I carelessly corrected his remark by saying, "You mean the world that I'm living in, correct?" He bowed his head in sadness and shook it from left to right, very adamantly, and then proceeded to tell me these very strange words. "We all live in this world. We do not all live in the same time." I respectfully responded, "You mean like 1984? He then waved for me to come over and to follow him into this cave entrance. I really didn't want to do that. I mean, I didn't know this guy from Adam. I have no clue what he is doing here, and following him into a small cave didn't seem to be my idea of using my coconut properly. As his head was turned away from me, I said, "I am not sure that this would be a good idea for me to follow. I don't even know you." He then, as he bent down, pushing the tiny cavern door completely open, had this obvious look in his eyes that I wasn't getting it. "Friend, you know me. You have known me for a very long time. You have always known me. Do you know how many times we have had this encounter?" He mumbled something as he turned around that sounded like, "How do you fight memory loss?" Unabashedly, I responded, "Sir, how do I know you?" Laughingly, he said, "It is so amazing how the soul forgets and the mind interrupts." He then continued, "My friend, we have known one another for 1,000 years, continually. We have had this dance one too many times. I was starting to think this guy was a sandwich short of a picnic. You know, the light was on, but no one was home. However, I did begin to realize something of great import was happening here, like a long lost memory that was deeply embedded within my thoughts, as it spoke its own revelation, telling me to follow and get in right and get it right this time. I was very reluctant, as you might correctly have surmised, yet I knew there was something unique and uncanny happening here. To miss out on this opportunity seemed to be too great of a price to pay. I then followed slowly but deliberately through the small doorway, and to my shock, there was nothing inside. It was stone cold empty, except a burning torch hanging on the wall, obviously the flickering light that I had noticed earlier. There was no place to lie down or sit. It was completely barren, with rock face all around, and it appeared to be circular, rounded room. The cave was small, probably about the size of a 10 feet wide, 15 feet depth, and about 8 feet in height. And the only thing that was in there was another small door on the opposite end. As I stood there looking around this empty space, the chief continued toward the other door. He then said, "Don't be frightened, but you are a doorway away from the Twilight Zone." I had to laugh because that was always my expression for things that seemed weird. I would have the dun 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 theme going, ringing in my head, and the old Rod Sterling show. Again, still scrambling for the correct term and what he meant by time. I continued to believe he was referencing to something different. And now the reference to the Twilight Zone really had me scratching my head. Little did I realize when I walked through the second door and came out into a large, vast area of trees, the mesa, just like I had entered, I would be dumbstruck by what was that I would see. Hmm. The area was filled with Indians of the Anasazi tribe, and they walked over to the chief and conveyed their allegiance to him in some ancient Indian dialect. I must have seen 50 to 100 of them. They were milling about to and fro from their dwellings and working off the land. They looked at me as if I was a ghost or something, a stranger from another place and time. But they were friendly, even beyond friendly, as if I was someone they all knew. I wondered if this was some sort of play acting going on, somewhat akin to the Battle of Gettysburg, where every year they reenact the ceremony of the battle during the Civil War. I asked him, who set this up? And why didn't I hear this from the other side of the cave? I was referring to the chatter and the talk of the Indians as their children also laughed and played like other children would do. This is a very little, there is very little distance between one side and the other of the mesa, and I am sure that I would have heard these voices. It never occurred to me that I was not on the other side of the mesa, even though it was obvious that I had to be. Friend, this place is not on the other side of your mesa, the chief corrected me as if he could hear my thoughts. While he jumped in to say, this place is on the other side of time. Chapter 3, The Two Worlds. Day 1, Mystery of the Soul. As I stood there examining my thoughts, I was thinking, my God, do you know what you are telling me? Are you really trying to tell me that I am back in time? That this is when the real Anasazi Indian tribes worked and lived? How is any of this possible? I was starting to get angry. I began to believe someone was trying to trick me. I ran back into the cave entrance on the one side and quickly maneuvered out the front side. I was upset and wanted to show this Indian character that I don't like being made to look like a fool. Of course, the reason there was so much anger is because I couldn't shake the fact that my consciousness awareness was experiencing a time shift and my puny little brain was not along for the ride. What I saw on the other side was too elaborate. I mean, ancient huts and the way the Indians were working and toting things along on their backs. Everything looked so authentic. The children were all speaking a strange dialect that I had never heard before. Their games were even strange. One such game that they were playing was that there were three children standing, and in front of them lie three small stones, one in front of each child. The first child bent down to pick up their stone and threw it about 10 to 15 feet in front of them. The other children laughed as if something went amiss. Then the second child would throw their stone. This time it went a little further than the first child's stone. The children all made a sound like, ah, as if the second child did much better than the first. I did not comprehend what it was they were doing. I then noticed on the ground in front of them was a circle carved in the ground. I then understood, after watching about 15 minutes, that the object of the game was to get the stone inside the circle. And then finally, the third child threw their stone and it landed in the circle and bounced out. The three kids laughed and ran to the circle to retrieve their stones. The first child who missed the circle was made to stand inside the circle. The two others went back to the start and held their stones in their hand, this time instead of picking it up from the ground. That's okay. However, the last child's stone that landed inside the circle and had bounced out, that child had to turn around facing the other way at the start. The second child's stone that had landed inside the circle, they could throw the stone first, and the objective was to get it close to the circle without hitting the child standing in the circle. Well, of course, if that child was successful, then the child won the event. The circle was about 4 feet in diameter. However, I noticed that it was not wise for the child who made it in the circle. Excuse me. I noticed that it was not that wise for the child who made it in the circle the first time to get in the circle again. I guess not, getting hit with rocks. I'm going to continue to skip over this because y'all can get this if you want it. We're going to get ahead of this. Okay. Who could have taught these children to speak in this language and play these very odd games? It would have taken a good while. I was bound and determined to prove this was nothing but an elaborate hoax. He's still not getting it. I scurried around the mesa as fast as I could. By the time I came to what I believed was the other side, there was nothing there, not even a doorway leading back inside of the mesa. I scratched at the wall looking for any sign of a doorway, and there was nothing there. I looked at the surrounding area, and it seemed all wrong. However, over the northwest, buried under trees and leaves, is what appeared to be one of the ancient Indian dwellings that I had observed a moment earlier. It was in the same place, but trees were growing all through it, and the hut looked centuries old and was badly deteriorated. It was obvious that great periods of time had elapsed, and there was not a single soul anywhere to be found. This is when my heart sank. I stood there shaking like a leaf, saying, "This can't be happening. This can't be true. How can walking through a cave take one to another period?" My mind was firing neurons lightning quick. My thoughts were not making any sense. So much was happening in my mind, I could not make heads or tails out of what I was thinking or how I was going to react. I thought I needed to tell someone immediately about this and let them know, but who would believe me? They would laugh at me and extol the virtues of my stupidity. Yet, if I could just get one person to verify then I would have a witness, and then it wouldn't seem so easy to toss aside. I wonder who would I be able to tell about these things, and what should I say? And then this familiar voice that I heard ever so recently spoke from behind and said, I want you to tell your story to as many people as you can. The Indian chief had come around to interfere in my chaotic thoughts as if he was reading my mind again. And he was telling me that he wanted me to reveal my story long and wide. I turned around to see this amazing chief in full regalia staring at me intensely, and I offered a voice in return. You really want me to tell others about this secret doorway to the past? Chief Anime Cybus looked at me in this troubling aura and said, no, this door is meaningless. Soon this door will be opened for no one, and yet, in time, it will be opened for everyone. What? Listen carefully to me. I want to teach you something. I need you to listen. And it is these words I want you to share with your time and people. What words might that be? I want you to come back to my time and listen and learn. I want you to understand what is happening to you and your world. Still not really grasping all that this is, as I spurted out, could you be a little more precise? What a moron. This guy is really a moron. Sorry, dude. If it's taking you this long to grasp this thing, come on. Man. Again, he shook his head and grumbled in his breath while chuckling, and then said, lost memory is the root of stubbornness, which creates lifetimes of bad results. Wow. If you're going to walk away with something today, there you go. Lost memory is the root of stubbornness, which creates lifetimes of bad results. Boy, is that not true. I think we're all beginning to see something here. I'm sorry. I really don't understand. This guy is so asleep. I'm surprised he even knew what he was looking at out hiking. Yes, I know. I realize that you do not understand yet. And then after I'm done explaining it, you might fail to realize the seriousness of this message, and you may forget it all about it in time. And guess what? Lo and behold, here we are again. Sir, as I was getting ready to reply, the chief said, shut up. No, what he said is, please call me friend. Why should I do that? I don't want you to look at me as a stranger, but someone very close, like a friend. Sir, friend, do you know who I am? Yes, indeed. But what is more important here is that you remember to know yourself. Trying to compose my thoughts, I didn't even want to respond to this, yet I was so intrigued that nothing mattered than to learn what it is that this strange, enigmatic Indian wanted to tell me. He looked at me and said, this door was opened to you because you are connected. We are connected. We came from the same beginnings, and you and I have lived in many bodies during many ages. And therefore, you have been able to find this connection. This doorway is between our souls, not different periods of time. At this point, my thoughts were racing, but they became more focused on what was that this Indian wanted to tell me. It was then that I slowly walked back to the front of the mesa and then walked between worlds of time once again, and found myself standing among those in the world of the Anasazi. I was then motioned over to sit down in what seemed to be in type like an amphitheater, a large cylindrical monument with a group stationed in the center. There were others who were there with him, that did not speak much, although they would utter a few English phrases, as if the chief had been teaching them, which then made me wonder, how did he learn the English language so fluently? His friends then stood by, smiled often, with what appeared to be an intense hope that I would understand, but more than that, they all seemed to know me. I was then asked to sit down in a round circle with the chosen tribe surrounding the mysterious stranger whom I met, which has become obvious that he is the chief and the true leader of this tribe. While the chief was in the center, each of us had our legs folded while staring directly at him as nighttime was quickly unfolding about us. There was 13 of us altogether, including the chief, and as the 12 of us encircled him, it was that I was the center, staring directly at the chief. As the stars were starting to reveal themselves, and two great fires were stoked, one behind and one in front of us, the chief looked directly at me and asked me, "Consider the sky." We all looked upwards. "What is it that you see?" I gazed around, gently turning my head upward. "I see the stars." Oh, they were brighter than I had ever seen them before. The sky was so pristine and clear. No smog, no pollution of any kind, no light to deteriorate its exquisite beauty, other than the flames of the fire and the sparkling ash residue as it fluttered into space. The chief continued, "Yes, indeed, you see the stars, but you do not see what they mean. With your eyes you see, with your ears you hear, but you do not see and you do not hear." I ask, "What is it that you see? What am I missing?" The chief smiled as he gazed upwards. "I see a timepiece. I see time unfolding. The stars are everything, and they are unfolding. They are the hands of the universal clock." The chief continued, "Do you realize that this world operates in ages? Each age has a specific amount of time for the constellations to move to and fro. Space is a clock for time. But what most do not see is that it is a constant, that time does not move outward forever. It rotates like a clock and returns from where it came from, just like the stars. Therefore, we witness the sun every morning with the newly formed grass in the spring and the fallen leaves in autumn. As a cycle, we see the same with the constellations every year as they move like hands on a clock. Time is a loop. Time is not linear. Earth is a time machine. It simply moves back and forth through time and always comes back to the beginning once it reaches the end. It cannot proceed further. As I was trying to take all of his words within, I replied, "Yes, I can see that. Not sure I totally understand where you're going with this, but I understand what you're saying." The chief continued, "Earth is a time machine. The problem is Earth is no longer set up on its original clock. It has been changed." "Changed? I don't understand. What do you mean changed? It seems the clock, as you call it, via the stars, functions perfectly." The clock we see in space-time is the master clock. It reveals the times of the ages. Each age exists in a perfect numerical output of time. Each age lasts for approximately 2,160 years. And there are 12 ages that last for approximately 25,920 years. This is the master clock. This completes the grand cycle. The problem is the cycle was interfered with. The Earth clock jumped off the time mantle and has been rotating not in a 2,160 years of ages, but it is now stuck within one age of an age, or 1,080 years. And it keeps repeating this half age continually. It doesn't travel through the 12 houses anymore. It is stuck in one house. The last 1,080 years has been stuck in Pisces. Are you telling me our Earth has its own clock and somehow it is stuck in a loop of time that lasts only 1,080 years? That would mean our history is only 1,000 years old, and then it starts all over again. Is this correct? That is correct, my friend. We are stuck in a shorter time loop, and it has become a prison. We are no longer following the initial ages of the 25,920 years. The furthest we can go back in this loop is the 10th century AD. Anything before this time has been eradicated from our memory. Many millions of years have been erased except for the memory fallout or information given to us from sources beyond. Memory fallout? Yes. This is when a person's consciousness remembers something that has been blocked long ago. We call it fallout. So, you are telling me that there is no history prior to the 10th century. How can that be? We have plenty of proof our history goes back to the time of Egypt and even long before, and so much further back even unto the dinosaurs. What are you saying? What you are saying is not logical. The history that you speak of which we have been given, much of it is all a lie. It is either a deception, a fraud, or a forgery that has been replicated, duplicating historical events that have been regulated from one time and replaced into another time, extending the historical document. It is an alternative history or a fake history created via wars where the victor changed the knowledge of history, of which their history was usually wrong also, because even those cultures were once conquered and their history was redacted. There is no viable known history before the 10th century. However, there is a history. It is just no longer available via memory unless you have access to the energy centers of the earth. Energy centers? Yes, I will be discussing this later. What about the sciences of carbon-14 dating and other techniques like dentahydrography, potassium argon dating, thermomagnesis, amino acid dating, and so many more? We use all of these to prove our ancient sources and artifacts. They date back well before the 10th century. Also, what about family lineages that extend long before these said dates? Again, mostly fabrications. These inaccurate sciences were created to make sure you never know the truth that our history is only 1,000 years old and that you are stuck in a time loop. But remember, the earth is not 1,000 years old. It goes way back into antiquity. Everything that occurred before this period was removed from our memory. There is very little known history prior to the 10th century or 937 AD to be exact. As of this timeline, based on this time loop, we are now within. And the interesting thing is about carbon-14 dating is that it completely deteriorates about 900 years back and it becomes corrupted, revealing false data. Therefore, much of our historical record prior
is all invented and guessed at. All we have is a duplicated history of the same events repeatedly, with names changed and certain details are forged on top of others, with a blending of actual events and false errors, but never revealing the true source data about these lost ages. It is the same history being repeated time and time again from events in the future and not the past. Whoa, that's almost too hard to believe. There are entire libraries with proof of our history. Are you saying that they're all wrong? Most information gathered in from what many would call a library is repeated information of the same facts via fraudulent coercion. Most do not carefully examine the content. They simply repeat what past authors teach about history. And if the deception was paramount back then, repeating it only empowers the lie. The real libraries on this planet were all removed, hidden, or destroyed, and the information either was buried or confiscated, except that which is within the energy vortexes, which keeps everything in memory. You have heard of libraries such as Alexandria. These were the works of the real ancients, and they were destroyed and replaced by the new, albeit chronological, historical lies. It is important that we not quibble over details. It is, however, important that you understand what is happening in the big picture. I'm going to go for about another 5 minutes, folks. I'm loving this. I mean, this has got my mind going whoop, whoop. How did all of this happen? Who could cause this to occur? I mean, we're talking about changing of times and records. I would think only a deity could do this. Why would anyone want to do this? And secondly, if what you are saying is true, and our time loop began in the 10th century, wouldn't that mean the time I'm living in now, that the events in my time are coming to an end? Now, my friend, you are beginning to ask the correct questions. Yes, indeed. We know exactly when these events will occur within a 5-year period. The loop will occur. In April 2017, as you understand time in this loop, it can go to 2022, maybe even as far as 2027. We are not totally sure why this is, but we believe the time will be cut short for various reasons. Little digression here. I did a video the day after Trump had won election and told people, many people experienced the cognitive dissonance of a time shift. We've talked about that. We'll talk more about this. Holy crap. That is only about 33 years away. You mean each time loop could have a different end time date? Yes, indeed. It can differentiate due to micro changes. Now, maybe you can better understand why it's imperative that you start your training now. Time itself has changed in how it operates, and the Earth is now programmed to follow an approximate 1,080-year cycle instead of the 2,160-year cycle of the 25,920-year grand cycle. It had to be changed because there was not enough control over historical events over long periods of time as there is with shorter periods. Now, folks, isn't it odd that we know that our Earth, as I started this, is spinning faster? So time is changing. You can get the chills all around you getting into this stuff. What do you mean controlled over? Who is controlling this? I will get into all of that in time, no pun intended. The rest of the Indians there with us began to laugh at his little pun joke. The reasons this was done was to imprison the soul. This 1,000 plus year period, spoken often by your religious
and secular academia is what your philosophers believe is a futuristic event. Some call it the 1,000-year millennium. Others call it the kingdom on earth. And still others call it the world order. What I am telling you is this so-called kingdom or this 1,000-year millennial reign is not a futuristic event. It is the time loop. And I'm going to break off right there. All right, I'll just go a little bit further. Yikes. This is truly bizarre. I have heard of people speaking of a 1,000-year period that a future time will bring in peace, and you are saying this is not our future, but it is our past? Would it be a surprise if I told you that you are already living in this so-called millennial reign, and it is about to be replicated again for another 1,000 years? It is a perpetual kingdom without end for eternity. Why? Because it's a time loop. Well, sure. Some of our religions teach this about a coming kingdom that will last for 1,000 years, but I believe this to be a futuristic benevolent period when peace and tranquility will return to earth. I've even read about what is called the world order, and they say it will be a 1,000-year reign also. Not sure that I ever realized that this may be the same event. It does seem to correlate between the two, that there is something dubious about this 1,000-year period. And why just 1,000 years? Why not 2,000? Why not 10,000 or even 1,000,000? Why did this arbitrary number? Where did it come from? I have even read where Hitler wrote about this 1,000-year rule on earth, and he called it the New World Order. Exactly. This number is not even equal to an age or the 12 houses of ages. So why even choose this number? Well, maybe they were forced into doing it because this is all that is remaining. Excuse me? What do you mean they were forced? The chief responded, maybe even the controllers are stuck inside the 1,000-year loop. So they have to they have to abide by its parameters. We'll stop right there. Liking this story? I don't know how many are still here, but if you are, what the freak? Has this not just fucking blowing your mind? We're seeing anomalies, and excuse me for the outbreak of that, but just the possibility that this could be possibly the answer to a lot of the shit that we're seeing, all of it coming and coalescing, never realizing we don't have 10,000-year history. We don't have the ancients of times. Our history is very limited, going over and over and over again, making this reincarnation nothing more than a regeneration into a time loop prison. Wow. Woo. I can tell you we're going to continue this reading. We got to. We literally got to. I mean, and if you want the book, email me. I'll send it to you. You can read it. It's long, but I got a sense that as with everything, time is being condensed. Why? It's exactly what it's doing. Let's see. Yeah, it was called The Lathe of Heaven, Al. I got the DVD. It was on PBS. Jana says, I'm so confused. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, folks, good reason. So anyway, I've really gone over, but it's a possibility. We cannot be so arrogant in our thoughts to simply dismiss this because we wouldn't know. Our leaders wouldn't know. And if time is what time is, then
Is the spirit constrained by time? We all thought about passing over on the other side where time doesn't exist. So, well, now, wait a minute. What if we're all living, in other words, when you and I die, I am going to be born again in 1995. And again, I'm going to live my life to end at this point of bringing out this. Wow. Okay. Woo. I'll look forward to the comments later, but wow. I don't know what the conversation's, but folks, this is something we should really think about. I mean, wow. It has been thought about. And like I said, um, there's a lot of things we don't know about the Anasazi. They taught us about many different things. So, wow. All right, folks. Well, thank you for sticking around. Tomorrow, Miss Jennifer Roberts, Jenny will be on, and who knows, we may be talking about this as well. Wow, my mind is blown. Marsha, talk about synchronicity to all of this. Thank you all so much. Regina, all of you, Robert V, all the rest of you, so much love to you all. Thank you. And whoa. Here we go. I think this may be the best adventure yet. I mean, I love going down these time loops, these time wells, and this one's going to be fun. All right, folks, see you tomorrow. Love yourselves, love the ones you're around you, be of service to others, and let's hope that this is not the case. But if it is, holy schmolies. All right, much love to you. Yes, mud fossil. Yes, very much a lot of this. You got it. Okay, we'll see y'all tomorrow. All right, bye-bye.